My name is Hannah Foster. I'm 27, and for years I'd believed I mattered to my family. That illusion shattered the moment I stepped onto my niece's birthday porch, clutching gifts I had bought with my own money. The decorations were cheerful, pastel pink balloons tied to the railing, a glittery sign reading Happy Birthday, Lily. The sound of children laughing floated through the backyard like carefree music, completely unaware of the storm at the front door. I took a deep breath and rang the bell. The door swung open, and there she was, my mother, always dressed in pastel cardigans, her smile evaporating the instant she saw me. "We don't want you here today," she said, her voice light but hollow. I blinked. Then came the smug, unmistakable tone I had heard too many times before. "This is no place for losers," Robert, my older brother, sneered from behind her. Arms crossed, a slow grin spreading across his face, he looked like a predator enjoying the smallest shred of my humiliation. I felt it like a physical blow. "Man, showing up like this? Cringe," he continued, tilting his head and chuckling. "Lily doesn't even care if you're here. Why don't you do yourself a favor and leave before you embarrass yourself?" A familiar wave of discomfort rolled over me. The same feeling I'd had at every holiday, every dinner, every family gathering, the feeling of being invisible unless I was writing a check or saving them from their own recklessness. I tightened my grip on the bag of presents and swallowed the lump in my throat. My unkempt hair, my hoodie, the dark circles from sleepless nights working through contracts and code, they were all a mark of my failure in their eyes. 6 months ago, Robert had shown up at my apartment in desperation. "I just need a little help with Lily's birthday," he had said, feigning humility. "It's temporary, I promise." I had transferred the money that same night, no questions asked. And now I was the loser. I glanced at my father behind them, his eyes darting away like he couldn't bear to meet mine. My mother shifted uneasily, but said nothing. It was rehearsed, orchestrated, silent agreement that I didn't belong here anymore. I could already hear her inevitable excuse. "It's not about the money, sweetheart. It's just the way you present yourself." In their world, success wasn't measured by innovation, by sleepless nights writing code that paid six-figure contracts, or by patents that mattered. It was measured by designer suits, flashy cars, and weekend golf memberships. I wasn't a daughter, I wasn't a sister, I was a walking ATM. Pain, anger, disbelief, they churned in my chest. Words rose in my throat, protests, outrage, demands for an explanation. But the fire flared and died, just as quickly. "Fine," I said, stepping back, "if that's how you feel." I turned and walked to my car, placing the gifts in the passenger seat. Just as I was about to shut the door, my gaze flicked back to the backyard. Lily was running in her birthday dress, laughing, oblivious to the tension at the front door. For a fleeting moment, I almost reconsidered, but Robert's words rang in my ears. No place for losers. I slid into the driver's seat, hands tight on the wheel. For years I had convinced myself that I was part of this family, that I mattered, but I wasn't. I didn't turn my phone on for 2 days. No guilt-tripping messages from my mother, no "let's move past this" from my father, no smug taunts from Robert. Silence. On the third day, curiosity got the better of me. 27 missed calls, 15 voicemails, 32 texts. My lips curled into a smirk. The highlights. "Mom doesn't understand, call me." "Jacob, are you serious right now? Grow up." "Lily's been asking about you." Then a message from Kelly, Robert's ex-girlfriend. "I'm sorry I didn't agree with what happened. Please call me when you can." Kelly had always been quiet, compliant, but there was urgency in her tone this time. I typed back, "Why are you apologizing?" Her reply, "Because Robert is losing his mind. Money's tight. He counted on you for Lily's party. He already overspent assuming you'd cover it." I snorted. Of course he did. For years, I had been the invisible safety net beneath him. This time, I cut the strings. I leaned back in my chair at home, my computer screen glowing with lines of code that actually mattered. And yet, here I was, sucked back into family chaos. That evening, I drove past my parents' house, not to enter, just to watch. The decorations were gone, the balloons deflated, the glittery banner sagging. Robert was still in the driveway, but his smug energy was gone. Instead, he paced behind the curtains, muttering, frustrated. And then I saw Kelly sitting at the dining table, face buried in her hands, exhausted, done, finally standing her ground. I had seen that look before, my own reflection in her despair. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. Kelly again. Talk to me, I said. Robert is out of control. He's screaming at your parents, blaming them for you not fixing this. He might have to sell his car to cover the party debt. I laughed aloud. The irony. The same brother who mocked me for driving a practical car now had to sell his luxury vehicle because he miscalculated his own greed. Tell me you recorded it, I asked. I should have, Kelly admitted. You would have loved it. Her next words made me pause. Can I ask you something? Go for it. Why did you put up with it for so long? Flashback. Age 13. Hannah hunched over a clunky desktop, finishing her first program, a simple algebra solver. Robert, 16, at the time, barged in, scoffed, slammed the monitor off. My mother chuckled in passing. That was the first time I realized intelligence and effort would never earn recognition in this family. Back in the present, I exhaled. Kelly's question lingered. Why did you put up with it for so long? I hesitated. I thought if I kept giving, eventually they'd see my worth. Kelly's voice was sharp, urgent. Yeah, and now you finally do. For the first time in years, someone in that family actually understood. I tightened my fingers on the steering wheel, a mix of relief and resolve settling over me. For once, I wasn't just a family ATM. For the first time in years, silence felt like a balm. I didn't answer the calls. I ignored the texts. I didn't respond to the voicemails stacked neatly in my inbox. Robert's attempts to draw me back in fell flat, and yet, curiosity gnawed at me. I wanted to see how far the consequences of my absence would stretch. 2 days after Lily's birthday, I drove past my parents' house again. The chaos inside was palpable, even from the street. Balloons lay deflated in the yard. The banner sagged. Robert's luxury car, usually a symbol of his arrogance, sat gleaming in the driveway, but it couldn't mask his flustered energy. He paced behind the curtains, muttering to himself, gesturing wildly. And then I saw her, Kelly, at the dining table, head in her hands. Unlike Robert, she wasn't throwing a tantrum. She was done. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. Kelly. Talk to me, I said. She hesitated, exhaling sharply. Robert. He's completely out of control. He's blaming our parents, yelling at them for not convincing you to bail him out. I raised an eyebrow. Define out of control. He might have to sell his car to cover the party expenses he assumed you'd handle. I couldn't help laughing. The same brother who mocked my practical car for years was now being forced to part with his overpriced luxury vehicle because he'd misjudged his own greed. Did you record it? I asked, grinning. I should have, she admitted. You would have loved it. Her next words made me pause. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why did you put up with it for so long? Her question hit me like a punch. The answer wasn't simple. Flashbacks came unbidden. Age 13, hunched over our ancient desktop, typing the first program I'd ever written. A simple algebra solver. Robert barged in, sneered at my nerdy hobby, and slammed the monitor off. My mother, passing by, chuckled. Sweetheart, you should do something normal. That had been the first lesson I learned. Intelligence and effort never earned me recognition in that house. Present day, I exhaled slowly. I thought, if I kept giving, eventually they'd see my worth. Kelly inhaled sharply. And somehow, now you do, for the first time. Her words settled over me like a shield. Someone in that family actually understood. The next few days were a delicate dance of observation. I let Robert stew in the consequences he had so often avoided. Each frantic call he made, each desperate text, went unanswered. The power dynamic had shifted. I saw him trying to impose control over my parents, shouting at them in the kitchen. My mother tried her usual coddling, my father a hesitant attempt at reason, but neither could fix the hole he had dug for himself. He was learning, finally, that he couldn't manipulate me anymore. Meanwhile, I leaned into my work. Lines of code, contracts, projects I actually cared about. Peace returned to my apartment like a gentle tide, washing away years of familial chaos. Yet, I couldn't ignore the pang of guilt for Lily. She had no say in any of this, and I had always been the one making sure she had what she needed. Watching her caught in the crossfire left a hollow ache in my chest. I called Kelly that night. I want to help Lily, but I'm not giving Robert another cent. How do we do this? We crafted a plan quietly. Direct support for Lily, outside of Robert's reach. Gifts, funds, and communication. Everything without giving him leverage. Kelly's relief was palpable, and as I hung up, a sense of calm settled over me. I could be generous without being exploited. For the first time, I wasn't just standing up to Robert, I was standing up for myself and for Lily. And that evening, I drove past my parents' house once more. The energy in the driveway was different. Robert's pacing had slowed. His frustration was now edged with desperation. I saw him fling his hands in the air, his luxury car a silent symbol of miscalculated arrogance. I smiled to myself. Let him learn. Let him stumble. I had already learned mine. Inside me, a quiet satisfaction bloomed. The scales were tipping. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt the delicious weight of justice, tempered with resolve. Robert never gave up. A week later, my doorbell rang. Bang, bang, bang. I already knew who it was before I even peeked through the peephole. I took my time, let him stew, let him sit in his own frustration while I sipped my coffee and watched the sunlight catch the dust in my apartment. Eventually, I opened the door. Robert stood there, disheveled, sweat glistening on his forehead. His luxury car of pride, the same one I had driven past laughing at its absurdity, was far away. His eyes darted like a cornered animal. "You think this is funny?" he spat. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, calm as a winter morning. "I think it's hilarious." His jaw twitched. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Oh, more than you know," I said, voice steady. "You don't care about Lily crying when Kelly left with her?" he demanded. I laughed softly. "Lily cried because her father is an idiot who tanked his own life. Don't put that on me." He faltered, and for the first time I saw uncertainty in him. The same arrogance that had fueled years of manipulation was flickering like a candle in the wind. I just need a little help," he admitted, voice dropping. "Alone, okay?" I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, so now I'm good enough to help?" He swallowed hard. I could see the hope light up his eyes, a flicker of expectation, and I smiled. Not cruelly, but with the power of someone who had finally learned her worth. "No," I said simply, "I don't lend money." His face fell, hope dying instantly. I stepped closer, voice soft but firm. "I give money only to people who deserve it. You're not one of them." The disbelief on his face was almost funny. I patted his shoulder, enough to make him stumble slightly, and said, "You'll figure it out, champ." Then I turned and closed the door. That was it. No arguments, no tantrums, no desperate pleas, just closure. For the first time, I didn't feel anger or spite. I felt relief. I had finally reclaimed my life. A week later, I heard from Kelly. Robert had finally gotten a job. Not glamorous, not high-paying, but a paycheck that wasn't mine. And for the first time, he had to stand on his own 2 feet. I watched from the sidelines, satisfied, free, and unburdened. I didn't text, I didn't call, I didn't hover. His struggle was his own. 6 months passed since that confrontation. Peace settled into my life like a long-awaited guest. No more emergency money requests, entitled messages, or manipulations. Silence, clarity, freedom. I checked in on Lily, of course, through Kelly. Gifts arrived, funds were secured, and I watched her flourish. My generosity was for her, not Robert, and that distinction mattered more than anything. I realized something profound. I could care without being exploited. I could help without losing myself. I could love without being a doormat. Robert had learned a lesson, though perhaps not fully. He struggled, stumbled, and slowly rebuilt, but never again at my expense. And me, I had finally taken the reins of my life. I was free. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The constant weight of my family's expectations, entitlement, and demands had lifted. And yet, one thing still tugged at me. Lily. She was caught in the middle of this mess, a child who deserved care and love, not the chaos her father created. I made a choice. I would help her, but I would do it my way. Not through Robert, not under anyone else's control. I set up a savings account in Lily's name, direct deposits for birthdays and holidays, gifts sent quietly, lovingly, with no strings attached. I wasn't her aunt, only when it was convenient. I was consistent, dependable, but also boundary aware. Kelly and I became allies. We communicated in hushed, urgent texts that spoke volumes. No judgment, no manipulation, just care for Lily. I could sense the relief on Kelly's end. She had been the only one standing up to Robert for years, and now we were finally aligned. "You're doing the right thing," Kelly said in one message, "for Lily and for yourself." I stared at her words, feeling the truth of them sink in. For the first time, generosity didn't feel like a trap. It felt like power. And slowly, I began to enjoy life again. Mornings at my apartment, sipping coffee and reviewing lines of code. Evenings spent unwinding. No guilt calls, no frantic texts, no crises demanding my immediate intervention. One afternoon, I received a text from Kelly with a photo of Lily holding a small, neatly wrapped present. She was smiling, carefree, blissfully unaware of the past turbulence. My chest swelled with quiet pride. I hadn't caved. I hadn't allowed Robert to manipulate the situation. Yet Lily was safe, loved, and cared for. I thought about Robert, alone in his house, forced to navigate his failures. No luxury car, no easy money, no puppet to pull strings for him. I didn't feel revenge exactly, just the satisfaction of someone finally learning to face their own life. Months passed. Robert grew accustomed to a smaller life, learning lessons slowly and painfully. And through it all, I watched my own life bloom with independence, clarity, and control. I realized something vital. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. It makes you human. You can care for others without surrendering yourself. You can help without being a doormat. And you can love without being manipulated. That understanding became my anchor. It was the lens through which I measured every choice, every relationship, and every act of generosity. And for the first time, my family could no longer exploit me. Not Robert, not my parents, not anyone. Kelly and I remained in touch. Lily grew up surrounded by love, support, and stability, all because I had decided to stand firm, to reclaim my life while protecting the child who deserved it most. And in that reclaiming, I found something unexpected: peace. 6 months had passed since I had finally shut the door on Robert. 6 months of silence, clarity, and freedom. Robert had learned, painfully, that life couldn't be manipulated or borrowed endlessly from someone else's success. His luxury car was gone. His entitled lifestyle dismantled. He had to take responsibility for his own choices. And still, despite everything, he seemed bewildered that the world didn't revolve around him. Meanwhile, I had rebuilt my life piece by piece. My apartment, my work, my sanity, all mine, unshakable. I didn't live to serve my family's whims anymore. I didn't pay for their mistakes or soothe their insecurities. Most importantly, I had Lily. Through Kelly, I maintained a quiet, stable presence in Lily's life. Gifts, celebrations, and small surprises arrived regularly, never through Robert. She flourished in her innocence, free from the chaos of her father's manipulations. I watched her grow, proud that my choices had ensured her safety and happiness without sacrificing my own peace. One evening, I received a simple text from Kelly. Lily said thank you for the birthday gift. She loved it. You're the best. I smiled, setting the phone down. That single message held more value than 1,000 confrontations or angry words. It was proof that I could care, protect, and nurture without being exploited. I reflected on the lessons I had learned. Boundaries were not cruelty. They were survival. Generosity did not require surrender, and love did not demand submission. I had been exploited for years, but now, finally, I was free. Robert would continue to navigate the consequences of his choices. He might rebuild, stumble, and grow, but it would never again come at my expense. And that was enough. I poured myself a glass of whiskey one quiet evening and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. Peace, for the first time in years, was mine. I thought about the past, the betrayals, the humiliation, and I felt no anger, only clarity. I had acted decisively, with integrity and self-respect. I had reclaimed my life, and somewhere deep inside, I knew the best revenge wasn't cruelty. It wasn't gloating. It was simply living well, protecting those who mattered, and never letting anyone take you for granted again. For the first time in years, I was truly free.